Here are 5 more free Mac apps that are so good that honestly they could be paid apps, but they're completely free. So let's check them out. Now this first app here is called Max Fan Control. Now I like this app a lot because what it will let me do is define just how warm the system will get before the fans will start to spin up and to try to cool the system down. Now what Apple will do, in my opinion, is they will let their systems get too warm to try to keep them quiet. Now I can appreciate the fact that they want their systems to be quiet, but I think that they wait too long to spin up the fans. Now, is the system going to damage itself if it gets too warm? Probably not, because Apple has designed these things to be able to tolerate that. But we know that heat is not good for computers long term, and I'm looking at the long-term life expectancy of my laptop, and I want to ensure that it's staying as cool and efficient as possible. So using this tool, I can define my own custom fan curve and ensure that the system is not getting too much over the maximum temperature that I set, which is pretty cool. So using this, what I can do is, so I've got 2 options here. So I have my left fan and my right fan. So my MacBook Pro has 2 fans in it, which makes sense. So I can go here to custom and go to sensor-based value and say, you know what, I want the average temperature of the CPU to, once it gets to this temperature, to start to spin up the fans and make sure that it's trying to cool down a little bit, but don't go too crazy yet. But if it gets up to 90 degrees, at that point, I definitely want it to really spin the fans fast and try to cool down, because too much over that, I think, is too warm for the computer for a long period of time, especially if I'm doing something like a long video render or work in Blender, that sort of thing. I definitely want the system to stay cool as best it can. Now, again, is this going to damage the machine if it gets too warm? If it gets up to 99 or even 100 degrees? Probably not for short periods, but for long periods, we know that heat is not good for computers, and that's true across the board, whether it's Windows or Mac OS or even your iPhone. It's not good to keep these things too warm for too long. So using this tool, I can set this to my own peace of mind. Probably isn't necessary for most people, but for people like me who tend to worry too much, I think it's a pretty cool option. This next app is one called Keeping You Awake. Now, I've done a video about this before, but I want to highlight this again because I think it deserves the highlight. I think it's a really cool free app that I wish I would have found sooner because it would have saved me a lot of headache, and it's really a pretty cool free tool. So what it will do is it will put this icon up here in the menu bar of my Mac, and it's this little coffee cup, which I can appreciate the humor there because I'm a coffee drinker and I appreciate that. I can right click on this and say activate for duration. Now the default there is indefinitely. So if that is activated, then the Mac will not go to sleep forever. So it will stay on indefinitely, which is pretty cool. So especially if I am doing something like a video upload, or I have some sort of process going on the Mac, which could be interrupted by the Mac going to sleep, then I want to ensure that the Mac is staying awake so it's not being interrupted, which I've had that happen and it's very frustrating. Or if I want to say, you know what, I know that the process will be completed within 30 minutes, then I can say, you know what, only stay awake for 30 minutes and then go to sleep. So I actually used this yesterday because I was working on some downloads here on the Mac and I knew that it wouldn't take more than an hour or so. So I said, go ahead and go to sleep after 2 hours. So the Mac would go to sleep after that 2-hour point, and then that way I'm not wasting energy and it works just fine. But I know that the processes would complete, which is pretty cool. Now, this is a free app and you can define your own activation durations here. So if you would want your Mac to stay awake for maybe 3 hours, then you could define it here, which is kind of a nice option. And this is a completely free, awesome tool, which I really like, and maybe you should check it out too. Now, this next app was brought to my attention by a commenter on one of my previous videos when I was talking about the unarchiver, and this app is called Keka. So Keka, I think that's how it's pronounced, and if I'm pronouncing that wrong, then please tell me. But Keka is also, like the unarchiver, a supplement to or replacement for the built-in archive utility, which is built into macOS. Now, the archive utility does a pretty good job, and it can understand a lot of different formats of archives, like zip and all those different formats, which is nice. However, Keka, like the unarchiver, can understand even more, which is nice to know. So this is a free tool which you can download for free from their website, or you can also go buy it from the App Store if you would like to support the developers, which would be very cool. If you appreciate their work, then please consider going to buy the app. I know they would really appreciate that. But if you want to use the full version for free, you can download that for free from their website. So there's no problem there. So what this app does is basically it's this, and I can select different types of zip files or archives to create there, or I can right click on an archive. So right now I've got the Spotify installer, for example, and I can just go to open with Keka, and it will unzip that for me right there, which is very cool and very easy. Now I can also, if I were to do this with the built-in archive utility for Apple, what I could do is go with open and then archive utility, and then it would do the same thing. However, Keka is able to understand more formats, so that could be very helpful if you have a format that the archive utility does not understand. So pretty cool. That is Keka. I like it a lot. Check it out. So coming to macOS from Windows, one thing that I really missed was the ability to drag windows to the edge of the screen or up into a corner and have them snap into place. So starting with Windows 7, you could drag a window to the edge and then have it snap to say like half of the screen or up into the corner. And that was very, very cool and very handy. macOS unfortunately does not have a very fluid way to do that. Now, what you could do is you could use this, tile to the left or to the right of the screen, which it works, but it's not, in my personal opinion, the most fluid and most usable, especially coming from Windows, because what I like to be able to do is just drag a window to the edge or up into a corner, and I can't do that here on macOS. Now, there is this free tool called Rectangle, which is an alternative to the paid Magnet app, which I've also used, and I've got that installed on here but turned off just to show you how this works. But Rectangle is a really cool free tool because what it will then do is allow me to snap windows into place, just like that, which is very, very cool and very handy, especially coming from Windows. So using a tool like Rectangle or Magnet, I could do that. Now, Rectangle is a completely free app, and I think it's a really cool option, but there is a pro version of this, which gives you some more shortcuts. You can define your own keyboard shortcuts if you like. Now, I've got the free version here, and it gives you a lot of keyboard shortcuts, which you could use. But if you want to define your own, then you can go for the pro version there. So if you want to support the developer, then that would be really cool to do that. But this is a really awesome free tool, which in my personal opinion, really, really helps the window management experience on macOS. And I like it a lot, so check it out. If you're someone that takes screenshots on macOS frequently, maybe you're working with design elements or that sort of thing, then you're going to appreciate this program called Shottr. And Shottr is a really cool free Mac utility that I wish that I would have found a long time ago. This is a really cool tool. So what it does is it will assign a couple of shortcuts to allow you to take screenshots. Now, of course, Apple does build into macOS a couple of ways to do your basic screenshots. Just, as it says here, you can do Command-Shift-3 or Command-Shift-4 to do your basic, macOS screenshots. And you don't need Shottr for that, of course. And I've shown you that before. And I think this is a really cool tool. And you can even, while doing the Command-Shift-4, you can hit space and then select various different things. But Shottr takes us a little bit further and assigns the Command-Shift-1 and Command-Shift-2. So if I do Command-Shift-2 and I do an area screenshot here, then it will open up here in the editor. And what's cool about this is I can now color pick. So I can say, what color is that? And so I can go up here, click on that, and I can even copy that to my clipboard, which is very helpful if I'm doing design work or if I want to ensure that I'm matching the color of a design element exactly if I'm designing something, which is very, very cool. Now I can also use this to measure, which is nice. So using this little tool here, I can use the 1 or 2 key on my keyboard and have it tell me, how far apart are these two elements? Or say from the top of that window to the bottom of this bar, or how far apart are these graphics? That is a really cool tool. And this is a completely free option. Now, this can do a whole lot more than I'm going to show you here because we don't have time for it. But I really recommend this tool, especially if you are someone who does design work, you're working with color, and you want to make sure that what you're working on is accurate. Maybe you want to try to develop a mock-up for an app or that sort of thing. This is a really cool free tool that I really recommend. So check it out. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, then please click that like button below and subscribe. It would really help me to grow the channel and to produce more content like this. And I look forward to producing more content about Mac apps and even some Windows apps as well, and just some general technology tips and unboxings and that sort of thing. So if you like that, then please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.